the last 244 years, everybody who walked into this room has believed exactly the same story. Since 1782, this portrait has been catalogued as two of the first Marquis of Rockingham's children, Charlotte and Charles, painted around 1740 by the famous artist Philip Mercier. But history is full of secrets, and during its restoration, our conservator uncovered a hidden truth that changes everything. Welcome back to Wentworth Woodhouse.
I'm Lucy Critchlow, and with my business partner Ava Kukkonen, we set up Critchlow & Kukkonen Limited in 2014. We're an easel painting conservation studio based in Sheffield, and we work for a range of clients including historic houses, the National Trust, museums and art galleries and churches. So as we look at the surface of the painting, we can see surface dust and dirt, including soot and nicotine. And we can tell that there's nicotine present because when we look in ultraviolet light, there's a brownish orange appearance.
Think of this as a time capsule of British history. This room hasn't always been a quiet space. For much of its life, it was the family's drawing room. And then in World War II, we believe, it was a bustling officers' mess, whilst the Army Intelligence Corps was based here at the house. And then by the 1950s, it was the busy office of Miss Elma Catton, Principal of Lady Megbill College of Physical Education. So combine decades of regular cigarette smoke with open cast mining close by in the gardens, and you get a perfect storm of grime that baked right into the canvas. This portrait is just the first of a crucial series depicting the family who built the Wentworth Woodhouse we see today. Thanks to a grant from the Aldama Foundation, we've restored the first piece, but 4 more family portraits, including the first Marquis and Marchioness of Rockingham, are still at risk. If you can help rescue these masterpieces, please give what you can by scanning the QR code, or use the Just Giving link in the description below. Thank you.
We can also see decorator's paint, white decorator's paint, which runs along the edges of the painting, and it's smeared across in some areas, and there are lots of small specks of decorator's paint.
And spots of gold and white paint are telltale signs that rather careless repainting of the overmantel must have taken place more recently, with the painting still in situ.
The varnish layers are yellowed and discoloured and have degraded, and at some point in the past the painting has been selectively cleaned, and that means that a past restorer has come and they've removed the varnish from pale areas such as the faces and the flesh tones, paler parts of the costumes, but left the varnish layers elsewhere in the background and in the darker passages. And this strengthening of the shadow by the sitter's finger is especially noticeable in ultraviolet light.
Cracks in the paint layer diagonally and along the top and sides reveal significant structural trauma. These tell us that the original stretcher had diagonal bars causing the cracks, and that this was replaced by the current crossbar structure, perhaps in the 19th century. But now the transformation begins. Lucy uses cotton wool wands dampened in a collating agent, which grabs the metal irons in the grime, lifting off the soot and nicotine layers. Just watch how the true colours of the faces are liberated from centuries of grime.
Once the dirt layers are removed, we carefully test a variety of solvents and solvent mixtures and see which is the most effective and safest for removing the yellowed varnish layers. So I'll begin using a type of alcohol to remove the upper layers of yellowed varnish, and I'll be working in the area of the finch today. And the upper varnish layers are beginning to swell and dissolve, and they're depositing onto the swab, and we're starting to see the lovely red colours of the finch's feathers.
As the varnish removal gets closer to the surface of the paint itself, Lucy uses a more gentle rolling motion to remove the final layer of varnish.
Removing the yellowed varnish layer is like lifting a yellowed veil from the whole of the painting, and we can now see the vibrant reds and greens and whites and flesh tones. Abrasion can be seen now where historic injudicious cleaning methods have actually damaged the paint layers, and you can see the abrasion in the area of the red jacket, and the underlying grey paint layers are peeping through in places.
Overpainting is also potentially masking a crack around the boy's finger, which interferes with the positioning of the hand. So microscopic examination is required to find out what's going on. To fix this injudicious cleaning from the past, Lucy applies a protective isolating varnish, then fills the paint losses with a specialised putty made of conservation grade adhesive and champagne chalk. And the painting is ready for retouching.
I'm using dry pigments and synthetic resins and solvents to mix my retouching paints on the palette so that they will match the hues of the painting.
Next comes colour matching, the ultimate test of a conservator's eye. The significant paint loss in the sky to the centre of the painting is a real challenge to fix, as the eye is very sensitive to shades of blue. So it's a case of building up the layers using a range of pigment mixes, including raw amber, ivory black, titanium, white, and synthetic ultramarine.
I'm now retouching areas of abrasion and structural cracking in the red waistcoat, and I'm using a marl stick to steady my hand so I can apply the retouching paint very precisely to the areas of damage. Whilst retouching, I found that my vermilion pigment perfectly matches the hue of the sitter's jacket, suggesting that the artist also used vermilion. Once I've applied the base coat, I will be using glazes to adjust the tone for areas of shadow, and I will be using pigments such as ivory black and Indian yellow to do this. So with removal of the overpaint from this area of the finger, it became apparent that, in fact, the overpaint had been concealing a pentimento, where the artist had adjusted the positioning of the sitter's index finger.
A pentimento, which is Italian for repentance, shows that the artist changed their mind mid-painting, covering up the earlier attempt. As paint ages, it becomes transparent, revealing the artist's first attempt. It's an exciting find, as it proves that the painting is original rather than a cheap copy. The ghostly blue shadow around the boy's arm is a very pronounced pentimento. The artist was clearly experimenting with the positioning of the arm and elbow resting on the birdcage. In this case, the colour contrast interferes with our reading of the painting, so it was agreed that the pentimento would be feathered to create better definition of the final position of the arm. With the retouching complete, the painting is moved to the extraction chamber and sprayed with several layers of wax resin varnish to perfectly lock in the colours. The result? Absolute magic. The murky shadows are gone, we see two engaging children, a brilliant display of wealth, a plush green velvet jacket, an ornate soft pink gown and gleaming jewels, not to mention the elegant bullfinch, a nod to their mother. But as the layers of old grime and varnish came off, something else came to light, a detail that had been entirely unnoticed for 244 years, a subtle signature and a date. And that proves that everything we thought we knew about who is in the painting is untrue. In part 3, the painting returns home and we unravel an historical identity theft. Hit subscribe for free so that you don't miss the reveal.